And almost from the very start, something else would set KCRA apart.
If you wanted a story, you had to go get it.
KCRA News in Vigo, Galicia, Spain.
We quickly expanded our sites to include not just California and the rest of the country, but the world as well.
The outrage was universal when the Soviets invaded Afghanistan.
We had a number of reporters that traveled, but Stan Atkinson probably risked most when he went to Afghanistan.
Throughout history, the Afghans have had a difficult life, but it's easy for them to accept that. They take it as God-given.
The opportunity to tell those stories was the best part of my career. I mean, there were amazing experiences. I mean, Afghanistan was just unbelievable in 1981 when I went in.
They cut off and bombard enemy forts until they surrender.
I got held up in El Salvador and robbed and got chased by a Soviet gunship into a cave in Afghanistan.
I think I went to about 10 different foreign countries.
Businessmen see this former Soviet Union.
I did 2 overseas series, one in Germany.
Where the communist East German government is actually selling people to the West. This year, an estimated 40,000 East Germans will be sold.
And one on the occupied West Bank.
It was formed outside of Jericho after the formation of Israel in 1948.
2 reporters went over to cover the Palestinian situation. One traveled with the Israelis. I traveled with the Palestinians.
Good evening from Tel Aviv. Governor Schwarzenegger's fame here in Israel has more to do, of course, with Hollywood than with his own political skills. The station always had a real commitment to covering stories that were important to people in this area. And of course, part of our job was not just to go cover the story, but to bring home any kind of California connection or California angle.
The Honorable Arnold Schwarzenegger, Governor of California.
Schwarzenegger was going to Jerusalem to preside over the groundbreaking of a new Museum of Tolerance. Schwarzenegger's father was a member of the Nazi Party during World War II, so the irony was impossible to ignore.
In July of 2014, Governor Brown led a 5-day expedition to Mexico to meet with top officials there. My marching orders before leaving for Mexico was make sure you bring back an exclusive one-on-one interview with the governor. By day 4, I still didn't have the interview. Used my persuasive powers and somehow tonight in a one-on-one interview got him into the room and the press secretary said, "You've got 3 minutes, go." He said, "This is a very complex problem. There's no easy solution. What is the answer?"
The answer is not to scapegoat.
I timed it on my watch. It was 52 seconds from top to bottom. I think that's the shortest one-on-one interview I've ever had with the governor ever.
Hi, Edie. How are you? Good to see you again. How have you been?
Well, thank you. How about you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much.
Traveling to the White House is certainly a point of pride for any newsroom, and we've been able to do it twice recently. And to be able to ask the President of the United States about the issues directly affecting this region, we know is a huge benefit for our viewers.
We have the best and most innovative IT, computer services, products in the world. And when it comes to innovation, California is our capital. These are going to be the huge markets of the future.
We're really proud to be able to bring those answers from the President of the United States straight to our viewers.
Let's get this done!
I remember, if you go to the elections of 2012, we were at the convention in Charlotte, and David and I were supposed to be there to cover the convention together, and Mitt Romney was the odds-on favorite to get the nomination. He was pretty much a sure thing. And at the same time, hurricanes broke out in the South. We had 2 people there. Why not split us up? I'll stay at the convention. David will go cover the hurricane.
Good evening from Slidell, Louisiana, where the winds and the rain have been building all afternoon. Houses like the one behind me collapsed during Hurricane Katrina.
KCRA continues to travel for stories that matter to people in Northern California.
Hundreds gather here at Gateway High School in Aurora to say goodbye, to say a prayer.
One of the big stories I remember covering for KCRA was the Aurora, Colorado movie theater shooting. And I had grown up in Denver, spent most of my life there, and so they called me and said, "We want you to go, we want you to be there field anchoring," and it was a huge story. It was one of those heartbreaking stories that I'll never forget.
It's that kind of attitude and commitment that in April of 2013 took us to New York City.
Well, we had already been on the East Coast covering another story, the NBA's decision about whether or not to move the Kings to Seattle. And it became apparent one morning while we were there in New York City that that decision wasn't going to happen.
And then to Boston, where we found ourselves in the middle of the Boston Marathon bombing manhunt.
The marathon bombing had happened several days before, and now there had been this manhunt overnight where there had been a shootout in a suburb of Boston. And so I spoke with the news director, Lori Walton, that morning, and she said, yeah, we should get on the road. We should go to Boston.
2 more bangs right there.
That's a total of 6 by my count. We can see, are we seeing those flashes?
As we're running, I'm on the phone to Sacramento saying, you'll want to take our signal live now.
Up pops KCRA 3's David Bieniek in this Boston neighborhood, and he is on the front lines of where these police have cornered one of the suspects, Dzhokhar Tsarnaev, the lone surviving suspect.
There are 2 more bangs right there.
KCRA's breaking news coverage would be seen on TV stations across the country.
There's only a handful of stations that I know of in the country that sees themselves as almost like a mini network.
There is no downtime for this unit. The minute we arrive in Gulfport, they get to work.
They're not afraid to disperse people and resources like a network would.
Good evening from the White House.
My series of special reports from Cuba continues.
KCRA News on the desert of southern Iran.
At Hamastron, Honduras.
From Nottingham.
In Beijing.
In New York City.
In Glendale, Arizona.
Live on Waikiki Beach in Honolulu on the island of Oahu.
In Mexico City, Mike Lurie, KCRA 3 News.